Let's take a look at the early relations between the USA and the Soviet Union. Ideological differences means the differences in political ideas. These ideological differences were very different between the USA and the Soviet Union, and this led to tensions, emerging tension and distrust. A Cold War refers to a conflict fought in every way except direct fighting between the two sides. Truman became president of the USA after Roosevelt's death. He was less sympathetic towards the communist dictatorship in the Soviet Union. Roosevelt had held the alliance together, and after his death, Truman's approach was more hard-line, so he was tougher. Stalin was distrustful of Truman, who demanded lots of things at the Potsdam Conference. Stalin was angry that, before the conference, Truman had successfully tested the atomic bomb without consulting him. However, Stalin was already aware of the progress the USA was making in the atomic bomb. Churchill was the Prime Minister of Great Britain. He believed that a defeated Germany should be rebuilt. But Stalin wanted to weaken Germany even more through reparations. Churchill also suspected that Soviet troops would not leave the Eastern European countries that they had liberated. Britain's economy had been severely impacted by the war, and it could not act against the Soviet Union on its own. As a result of this, it allied more closely with the United States. And as we already know, there was already some tension between Stalin and Truman of the US. So this process led to the divisions which would become known as the Cold War. The Soviet Union supported communism, whilst the USA and Britain were capitalist countries. These are further differences in ideology. Can you remember the names of the leaders of the three post-war powers? So there was Truman in the USA, Stalin in the Soviet Union, and Churchill in Britain. When Britain closely allied with the United States, the Cold War between East Soviet Union and West emerged. The development of the atomic bomb, the Long and Novikov telegrams, and the creation of a Soviet satellite state in Eastern Europe were all important events in the early US-Soviet relations. The USA had a usable atomic bomb by the end of the war. This gave it an advantage until the Soviet Union also developed its own atomic bomb in 1949. This arms race, so each country were racing against each other to produce an atomic bomb first, increased the suspicion between the former allies. So the USA and the Soviet Union were allied before, but then because they were both trying to develop the atomic bomb first, this then raised suspicion between them. The Long was a secret report sent by US ambassadors to the Soviet Union. So George Kennan sent a report to President Truman. This report argued that the Soviet Union was a threat to capitalism. Capitalism is the free trade between people and nations. So the report said that as it was a threat, the Soviet Union should be destroyed. It suggested that the Soviets were building their military power. An important aspect is that the report said that peace between the USA and the USSR was not possible. Novikov, the Soviet ambassador to the USA, wrote this to Stalin. He said that the USA wanted to be the world's leading power. He said that the Soviet Union was the only power that could stand up to the USA, and the USA was preparing for war against the Soviets. The Allies had agreed at the Yalta Conference that Poland would be run under a democratic model. However, Stalin broke this promise, and he turned it into a satellite state. A satellite state is a country that is effectively controlled by another one, in this case, the Soviet Union. As the Soviet Union had been invaded twice by Germany, in 1914 and in 1941, this resulted in huge territorial, industrial, and human loss. Stalin viewed the satellite states as a necessary buffer against invasion. However, Britain and the USA saw this extension of authority as an example of how the Soviet Union wanted to spread communism. They viewed this as a threat to the West, who were capitalist. While the Soviet Union had agreed to ensure free and fair elections in neighbouring countries, they went back on their promise between 1947 and 1949. People did not universally choose communism as the Soviets had thought. So Stalin fixed elections to ensure that the Communist Party would win. After the elections, the opposition was shut down, and this was known as Salami Tactics. In the late 1940s, communist leaders were installed in Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and also East Germany. The Soviet Union's actions were seen by many as an attempt at expansion of their territory. But Stalin saw them merely as consolidating their position to create a buffer zone in Eastern Europe to protect it from attack. They had been attacked twice in the past through Germany and the East, and this made them worried. To recap, why did the Soviet Union attempt to expand its sphere of influence in Eastern Europe in the late 1940s? It wasn't because it was looking for power, or because they were looking for more living space of Russians. It was because they were trying to create a buffer zone to protect it from attack in the future. And Russia put communist leaders in several Eastern European countries. These were Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria, and also East Germany. So there were two telegrams sent which caused conflict. One of these was Novikov's telegram. In this, he said that the Soviet Union was the only power that could stand up to the USA. It said that the USA was preparing for war on the Soviets, and the USA wanted to be the world's leading power. This was just one conflict between the leaders of USA and the USSR. Stalin was also angry with Truman, because after the conference, Truman had successfully tested the atomic bomb without consulting him. So can you remember what the tactic was called that the Soviets used to fix elections and shut down opposition? This was known as the Salami Tactics, which is a great name.